Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians!
Recent Tartarians! Recent Tartarians!
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians!
Именно она образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, the skin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии наномер, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз – 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Thank you for watching Xirtus. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Xirtus.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.
Viva Neuropa. Underneath the opulent facade lies a tale of power, betrayal, and fraud.
See, because like a lot of time German music, they'll sing in English because they think it's cool. Like, have you ever been in a bar and you're like dancing in Germany and some girl's like, "Where are you from?" And you're like, "Where are you from?" And like, "I'm from here." And you're like, "Why are we speaking in English every
Well,
time?"
since we're on that topic, are you familiar with the band called, and you should be, I guess, because they were internationally successful, by the name of Modern Talking?
Modern Talking. I do know Modern Talking. Yeah, actually, that's a good band. Isn't
And
that
just
like
because I just recently saw, for whatever reason, some kind of talk show where the short-term wife, supposedly only for 1 month, is talking about one of the headliners, Dieter Bohlen, and he's just an incredibly infamous individual, oftentimes on shows which are akin to, I guess, America's Top Voice or whatever, they import these formats, right?
Yeah.
And he's mainly he was hugely successful in the 90s because they stopped singing in German. They just didn't have the success they wanted. And I just watched this interview for some reason yesterday or something, where then they explain, basically with English, they just had a lot greater success. So much for Germans talking in English. They said they were simply, in my words, pandering to the audience in a sense, or they realized that's what people want. So
yeah, I mean, it's like Smash Mouth doing Shrek soundtrack, playing the monkeys. But it if it works, I feel like that's the important thing about an entertainer is like you're trying to find an audience, and vice versa. David Hasselhoff had to sing in German, so we all do what we got to do, right?
What did he sing in German? I don't even know.
Isn't that real? Am I wrong? David Hasselhoff singing in German. Am I wrong? I feel like he did, or did he just right? This one, do the house,
Oh wow! Okay, I've never seen this.
At the Berlin Wall.
But of course, for the Berlin Wall in 1989, they're gonna pull out all the stops, of course.
Yeah, dude, it was pretty sweet. Yeah, it's Do. Do is the song, and actually, you should watch the music video of it because it's literally just him on a beach going like Do, because it's like the easiest word in German.
I was about to say he's singing in German, right?
Oh, he does stuff. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. You gotta give it a shot. I don't know. But there's a lot of different kind of German music. I was trying a couple different versions of that. I don't know. Where's the It's got that little a little bit more like that 90s.
Yeah, depressed rock. Reminds me of Die Prinzen. The Prince.
Yeah, I would have bought this album. I love Die Prinzen. Oh, bro, this is blowing my mind right now. I love it. We're listening to whatever music we make up. Sorry, but you know what? Like, how you been? What have you been up to? Everybody, we didn't really do a proper intro. I've just been really excited. This is Neuropa. Let me pull up I made this cool new banner for this show. This is Neuropa. Look at that. That's
my
us.
God. Wow. All right. All right.
What do you think?
So,
well,
as long as the stars are Moorish stars and not European Union stars, I'm fine with it. But I guess it's European Union stars. We can agree on that.
European, yeah, they're definitely the Moroccan Christmas trees all arranged in the forest, in the sky. That's pretty good. But yeah, so how you been? What's life been like in Europe? How's the opulent facade over there?
Yeah, I'd not be the right guy to ask, I guess. There has been, I mean, the one thing, because how would you even know, even in your own city, like what's really going on? How would anyone know? We just see what's reported through the media, right? Mainly. I would say there is an uptick now, which is somewhat, I don't even want to say worrying, but noticeable, that there is a lot more media reports now about individuals getting attacked by people that recently immigrated, to put it mildly.
Which so is of more course, media about it all of a sudden?
Yes. So, and that's of course highly curious, because one thing is what really happens and, which statistic you can trust, everyone knows. And then there is this media report. So that's one thing if you ask about that. But aside in terms of what I've been doing, mainly producing quite a few shows with David. One thing I'd actually like to show potentially is some of the shorts, just because, a lot of time goes into editing 1 minute of attention grabbing, right? That's something we could go through. And yeah, then I have a whole array of links, as I mentioned in the
definitely. Can you add audio from your sharing to show that when you share the videos? Can you share your screen with audio?
Oh, I should be able to do that. Cool. Yes.
I want to comment on the migrant thing because I think that's interesting. So like I lived in Europe, and I remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even like there were things going on, but it was pretty bad in certain circumstances. It isn't that bad in most places. It's ironic when you look at these pictures because it should kind of give you the clue that these guys, for the most part, don't want violence. A lot of these guys are trying really hard to avoid violence, but there are, of course, groups of people that prey on. If you're an immigrant and you have a hard time getting a job, now you've got a social class that can be exploited. So you go to parts of France and you'll find entire ghettos, where they've just sequestered African immigrants or of different kinds of people, even from Syria.
I would argue in any case, it's, of course, it's always heavily engineered. And how often is it actually about some kind of economic issue, underlying economic issue, that I believe, at least at some point, I had read some studies where it said over 90% of crime that's happening can in some way, shape or form be traced back to some economic hardship. And what I had mentioned, or briefly you had shown it last show, I'm not sure if it really sank in, but I was sharing this link from the Darien Gap, where these two very crazy travel YouTubers that I had never even seen before, I somehow stumbled across this, where they are basically taking the route that the Venezuelans take from the south, right?
Yeah.
And they show you how they go through the jungle, and even if you just see that, and that seems as real as it gets. And then just to consider that all this strange setup that has been constructed through the financial system, the economic dependencies, economic hitmanship, all the background societies and whatever else, causes basically a permanent migration from south to north, with a cat and mouse game of being sent back or being robbed or even being harmed. And I just thought, because I had never known about this, but this is a thing that's going on permanently. And there I think you can see, aside from, maybe there is some immigrants or whatever that don't get along, but just to consider, because of the system, how it's set up, how many people are dying in that jungle every day,
Right.
You know, just
Well,
because we ruined South American economies, right? So it's insane.
Well, Venezuela is interesting because the violent deaths fall to the 22-year low. It's incredibly low right now. I mean, for Venezuela, you know, and in general, it's actually pretty impressive. Suicide rates are still rising in, you know, there's issues in Venezuela. Like there's still like people that are dying. But in terms of what we were looking at before, in terms of like, you know, people killing each other in the streets, there's a lot less of that right now in Venezuela. So
in Venezuela itself. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Venezuela itself. And so some people are going to say, oh, it's because they're all escaping to start gangs here, which I disagree. Actually, I think a lot of the Venezuelans that are escaping are like the most hyper conservative you'll ever find because they're reactionarily against socialism now. Like, because they have a personal offense to the idea of the way that early 90s Russians were, you know, had their enigmatic ideas. So a lot of the Venezuelans you run into are going to be more likely to be conservative than on the socialist side because they're fleeing their country. But the other thing is there's election cycles. So you can look at it where if someone's about to be elected again, or someone wants to maintain their elected position during a parliamentary change, then they promote the idea that there's no crime in the country, and they stop arresting, and they stop arresting in general, right? And if you stop arresting in general, then one of the things you would do is you'd leave alone immigrants. And that helps because it's just it lowers the tension and people like your politician more. If there's an election coming up and an incumbent is destined to leave because of some mechanism, they don't have it set up, then there's a lot more of an effort to point out that there's problems, that there's arrests going on, and that you need change, you know. And so if we vote, it'll lead to change. And a lot of the time it is like driven by stick or carrot, because people see heightened arrests happening just before elections, but also they see forgiveness of entire communities, right? Like this is what happened in California with cannabis. Like there was I forget if it was Governor Davis or something, but just basically decriminalized and ignored Humboldt County in the 80s when they found out that they were all growing cannabis. And that was the way that they got elected. And all of a sudden there were no more arrests. And then so people were saying, oh, well, you know, there's no more pot crimes, you know? And so because it was out of the psyche, it was out of the television, it was very useful to just allow that to exist.
I mean, like I said initially with the statistics, and I just brought this example because I had never seen it, and everything always when you see it subjectively with a camera, of course, is very real and emotional, but then who knows, you know, how many thousands or millions or what the real problem is. I think is a general issue with mediated reality that we are dependent upon for most information we can gather. Is just like you explained, only because of the statistics or police actions does it really mean anything? How can I really know anything if I don't even have an independent journalist over there, right? But only the known media that then again can shape the narrative accordingly. I don't know myself, honestly, what's going on. I can only say that obviously there have been these immigration waves. Obviously there's, you know, different plans behind it. And I just really hope that people, will not be riled up against each other, let's say, as they continually are trying, obviously.
What are you seeing in 2024 Austrian election, the legislative election? Like, are you seeing propaganda for this all the time already? Yeah.
Okay, so that's an interesting topic. So one thing that should be noted, again with a caveat about statistics, but this one I can really believe, which is that I brought this up before. Officially, the Austrian government is the least liked government, at least in all of Europe, if not in the entire world.
Nerds.
I wonder how you could even get so far, but of course there are quite a few explanations for that. So basically, you know, this is almost the best examples of Austrian individuals you wouldn't want to show on the world
stage. These are people with kick me back signs. Yeah. I mean, so we want to do a quick, baseball cards. All right.
All right. So this is our current federal chancellor, and you have to imagine that after many years, and we know, of course, that also the whole terrorism thing has its, let's say, engineering to it in many cases. However, there was one incident only.
Jay is triggered. They're white dudes, all of them. That's crazy. How is that still happening?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We don't have a.
Weird.
We don't have a Muslim black president yet.
Yet. Keep going.
Like maybe other countries had.
Come
Anyhow, so and what this guy did is quite amazing. So there was this official terror attack in 2019 or something, and believe it or not, this guy actually was the minister for the interior during that time.
Wow.
And usually, at least from what I would think of it, if something happens, quote unquote, under your watch, it doesn't even matter what really happened. You just step back. That, at least up to 20 years ago, from the little bit I can understand, would have been the normal regulation. Of course, they would still get a good job and whatever else, but at least they would be put out of the limelight. In this case, what happened, I mentioned some of this on some previous show with the whole 2019, I believe, dissolving of the government, where there was the, let's say, right-wing Freedom Party and the Black Party, the People's Party, which this guy is a part of, which has traditionally been the most important party in Austria, and now already for 20 years or something, owned or occupied the Interior Ministry, which of course is a big issue if for 20 years your Secret Service and all of this internal data belongs to the same party. I mean, there would be issues regardless, but this just exacerbates the problem. And yeah, then actually another guy, not him, but another guy kind of gave out, Kurz is his name, he's not on the list anymore. He was in the government until 3 years ago. He was the instead of this guy, of this Nehammer guy. And Kurz actually got elected by first bringing out faked up polls in newspapers and so on, this guy, yeah, where he basically said, oh, if I would run the party, it would be much more successful. So basically, it was an internal coup.
What
and
a beautiful man! Look at it! Look at it! He looks a little bit like American Psycho's Patrick Bateman mixed with a Ferengi. You know?
Can you please look up King Otto of Bavaria?
After I look at a Ferengi really quickly.
Yes.
Okay. What was it I have to look up? Otto of Bavaria.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's him. Yes. Look at the picture.
I like him. He looks. Look at that coif. Okay, like, all right. I know you're gonna tell me some horrible things about him. Before we do, let me just compliment. I just really love his coif. All right, now go ahead.
No, just compare his picture to the picture of the Kurz guy. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Especially with the ears, they are quite distinctive.
Oh, he does have big. That's why the coif. The coif is to hide the giant Ferengi. It all ties back together. All right, interesting. Ferengi means foreigner in French. Okay.
Yes. So so this Kurz guy, through these fake polls, basically couped his own party and then actually managed to win the election. And then, there is this whole saga of how then this video came up, which made the government explode and the right-wing party be dismissed. And the interior minister at that point was a guy named Kickel, who will be the next one on those cards now. He's the head of the Freedom Party. The right-wing, we would say here right-wing party, which by now would simply be conservative or something. And now what we have for this election basically will be the big match, because already for about a year, I believe, Kickel, the Freedom Party guy, who were the most outspoken during the Corona crisis and the most outspoken against lockdowns and so on. Big surprise, they are leading in polls since about a year. And this is something I have to say I'm generally somewhat wary of, because it very much looks to me as if now there is a plan to turn most of Kogler. No, he's the Green Party guy.
Is that the one you're talking about? With
Kickel.
Yes. Okay. This guy.
He was the interior minister. Of course, they choose the most sympathetic picture, especially for him. But anyhow, he's leading in the polls like straight up for about a year. And it's, on the one hand, it's a bit silly or funny, because it's a similar situation maybe to Trump in the US, where everyone is like, oh my God, you can't talk to him, you can't. And he just takes populist positions in many cases, and what you would say is a general basic logic or something. However, what I'm somewhat wary of or find interesting is that it looks to me very much as if they now want to turn most of European governments, quote unquote, right-wing. And I'm not yet sure what the long-term plan for this is, because at least for me, I don't believe that they would have governments that obviously make so many, let's just call them mistakes, or things where they would now say, oh, it only took us 2 years to realize that most of the measures we took were dangerous in themselves. And now I think that this was kind of planned. So I'm wondering, what is the next step for Europe? What is the next plan they have? Do they want all of nationalist governments now and start remigration, or let's say, what is the bigger game plan? Because it was obvious that after, in a way, people got deceived, or however you would want to call it, by their governments, they would want to change it. And from what I understand, most governments were more left-leaning during the crises. So obviously now it will get replaced, right?
It seems
So,
like the fourth turning kind of idea. You take all the money through entropic government that's just poor and bureaucratic and taxes all of the money. But once there's not a lot of that left, then you move on to efficiency because you have to actually run your system.
yeah, I mean, in a way, it could make sense, because also with the whole Corona thing, they gave out very special funds. I forgot the proper name now, but the funny thing is, of course, they didn't do it through the, how do you call it? It's not called IRS here, but we have taxation offices and all these kind of things. And there would have been all kinds of different ways to make sure that people would receive whatever benefit they need or support during the crisis. But instead, of course, the Black Party, the People's Party, supposedly, created new legal entities to funnel all the money through it. And, you can guess where much of that money most likely went. And of course, several big companies got overfunded. Many, many very small businesses got nothing at all, or they had to fight for it and then still have to pay it back. All these kind of jokes. So it was an obvious, actually, even while it happened, an obvious scam. And still until today, they don't talk about it too much. And as too often, in 5 years, maybe they will start a big investigation. And by then they will have pulled off 5 more scams. So,
man. Who's this Andreas Babbler guy?
Babbler, yes. Some like to call him Babbler. So he's an maybe interesting guy. He was the mayor of a town called Dreiskirchen, and Dreiskirchen in all of Austria was known as the, let's call it, immigrant collection town, or however you would call it. So where all the immigrants would first go to be processed, or I'm not sure how you would say, to be assigned, or to first to check if they actually can apply for asylum and things like that.
Converted
and now,
into citizens.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like get your new ID after they all.
It looks like there's a historical precedent from this shield that's what they did to the barbarians, right? Like this is that town.
Where they built a big church on top, or how do you mean?
Well, a church is a place, especially in Germany, where you take barbarians and you convert them, like batteries.
You convert them into bones or what? Yeah, who knows? But of course, for the current, political big game show, which I obviously don't believe in, but it's a nice show. They now have this mayor of the basically immigrant town versus, Kickel, the very strict strongman image former interior minister guy, who wants to stop the immigration and make sure that people that commit crimes are sent back to their countries and stuff like that. I mean, it's a similar discussion you have everywhere, and in a way, I'm almost astounded how they could drag this stupid topic on for decades. Yeah, and it's still kind of working because the one side still produces money, the other still believe in fake history, and the third guy still enlist in the army. Yeah, then you have this whole mess.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I don't know. It's interesting thinking from the conversion point, because you've got Germany already as a converted state. It's already converted into whatever it is now. And it's been converted again since the 20th century. But just go a few centuries back and it's a completely different culture. And these, that's interesting that picture of that church there, because just the idea that Germany's already done that before to itself. And that's a big part of like the Pink Floyd thing. Pink Floyd isn't white, he's pink. All the colors mixed together makes white through the Babylon pyramid. So it's this homogeny thing, and taking people and saying, all right, well, we've been really effectively homogenized and we know how to push on the homogeny, which is like David Icke or something.
How do you mean push the homogeneity? Or
yeah, because if you're in Germany and you already have your culture erased and changed, right? And we're thinking like, what did Germans do, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, let alone 300 years ago, 400 years ago, that it's just today, West Germans, and I'm calling, most of Germany, West Germans at this point. It's like South Koreans. Like there's a culture that's been installed. And there's a way of behavior that's really specific, actually. I mean, I think it's kind of maybe changing, but I don't know if it's changing necessarily for the better, because it seems like the internet culture that's replacing it isn't a stronger culture, but that kind of like hyper consumerist, fun filled culture, that is like self-driven and everything, that's pushed on to, hey, you can wander the streets and buy kebabs. You can be just like me,
And
like
it's a curious example, which to me also kind of suggests how so many of these crises have been engineered artificially from all sides ultimately, because what a big surprise, or how many countries actually got divided, where you would have one people and suddenly a part has to live in capitalism and the other one in communism. I'm not passing judgment on either of those. I think I prefer neither, at least in the forms they were presented. But just how crazy that is, that you would really just split existing cultures and communities and language communities, and just again we just split them in half and we give them completely different ideologies. And then even in the case of Germany, reunification happened now over 30 years ago, and you could still say, for many different reasons, that there is still some sort of inequality, or difference is not a bad thing. But the good thing, what I heard oftentimes about the former East Germans, is that they actually are much more wary of potential propaganda. Maybe we discussed this with Martin at some point, that because for them it's official that communism was lying to them because it's no more in East Germany, they are more on top of the idea that, well, maybe the newspaper doesn't always only print 100% truth. Stuff
well,
like
I wonder how long that's going to be the case. Yeah, again, I think it's like that was. I found it interesting when I went to Croatia this summer that people had. It's been 20 years since the war. A lot of people growing up, an entire generation, have never lived through that memory, and so I think in Germany, I'm sure it's becoming the same, where there's a bunch of kids in post East Germany who never even, they're born in 1991, right, or 1999 now. So there's probably going to be more forgetfulness, but East Germany was definitely different. And you had, I don't know how you did this so well, but naked strangers in East Germany, right? Because nudism was really popular in East Germany. They were really into humanist nudism, and they were against like shame and like that kind of Eden idea of like Germanic socialism. That's pretty cool. I saw this article that was talking about naked with strangers in Europe. It's how you relax at a spa and everyone's like, oh, this is crazy. Look at all these naked people. Oh man, Europe. But I think that's interesting that was like culturally what was the normative. Smithsonian's opening a nudist colony at the Smithsonian National Zoo.
The one thing for some reason that suddenly comes to mind has it something to do with collectivism, maybe? That this would encourage collectivism more because there is less to hide and be individualized through clothing. Now I'm talking on a very superficial level, but maybe that's a part of it why you would want it in certain cultures.
I think it shouldn't be like, if you wanted to wear clothes, that's fine. But I do think that we live in kind of this weird, like, why aren't you culture about clothes, about all kinds of things. But it's very Puritan. This idea that you have to cover yourself because your original sin, because Adam has eaten the fruit, and so now you have to feel shame. I've never quite understood that. I don't quite relate.
I also never quite understood it. I would think there is a reason to wear clothes, but it should mainly be to be comfortable and not to freeze or something.
Yeah, it should have been like Adam had to put on the skins of lions to like fight lions or something like that. Like I could get that, but I don't know. By the way, everyone's upset at Google for making diverse AI, but if this is the kind of image that you find on Amazon, then what do you expect? That's all I'm saying. We're training it. It's just our fault. And from now on, I'm only going to be using diverse pictures of Puritans from history.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm not naming the example now, but recently saw something where people are like, oh, how could Black individuals ever be in this or that army or something like that? And then I'm like, well, actually, if you look at history a bit closer, it almost looks like they actually were, So oftentimes, history is not so straight cut in terms of colorations and supposed biases than we are led to believe afterwards.
That was the funny part. Like the founding fathers picture was accurate, and like, there were the Japanese alliance with Germany. So there was, of course, Asians that were in the fascist brigades. There were, alliance brigades. There even
what
were.
Is your working thesis actually? Because I just talked about this with a friend who's a fan of the show, Hi, by the way. um, about this whole question, like how does it even happen in your mind that Japan and Germany were officially allied, allied as the Axis powers? What is in your mind? How do you make that go together? If you have any working thesis on that?
I mean, they're very similar. And the idea that they had anything to do, like, so this idea of gene flow in humanity, like everyone was interested in the 20th century and trying to find out about genetics, and they didn't have genomics yet, so they were trying to rely on fossils. And they were saying, okay, there's a lot of evidence of gene flow between Asia and, if you look from a polar projection of the Earth, you can see the quick connections between like Indo-Aryan areas to Scandinavia. So they already could see that it makes a lot of sense. And then they started finding that there's linguistic connections, and it's like, okay, with these linguistic connections, there must be, cultural connections. And then they were sending people to try to find evidence of bones and things like that. And while they didn't find what they were looking for a lot of the time, because they were trying to find a very specific thing, which is like, like they wanted to find Atlantis giants in Japan. What they did find was that the Ainu indigenous Japanese were essentially Nordic. And so there was a lot of connection there. And they also found that, like, it was going to be impossible to avoid Asia. And Japan already had this idea of like dominant aggression over Asia. And they were thinking, well, this makes sense. We'll have our part of the world, because people don't really understand World War II. Like, you have a dictatorship which is run by elite bloodlines, right? And I'm talking about the British royal family. And you have another dictatorship which is run by oligarchies and corporations, right? It's the United States banking. You have another dictatorship which is run, through a banking conglomerate, an authoritarian state, and a dictator, the Soviet, Union, right? And then they're all around this like small country in Europe that isn't very large. And the idea that it's wanting to go to war with everything at once, regardless, is it's an infeasibility. The idea of one country trying to go to war against everyone at once doesn't make sense. It's impossible. So even from the most practical perspective, you're saying, let's make an alliance with as many people as possible so we don't have to fight them. And that only works so long. But there's no reason why Japan feels like a necessity to be in the European sphere. So it's likely that they're going to respect the Third Reich in, Europe. That's kind of, I think, the play there. And if we respect them and they respect us, then we can have separate states. But yeah, there definitely were cultural connections that were tried to be made. And up until the 30s, Germany was a far more socially open state. You had a lot more interest in, like the 19th century Germany was all about saying, like, we are the Indo-Aryans. This is way before it became like a racial thing. It was a spiritual idea and it was a cultural idea. So I think that it was really, no one knew yet exactly what was going to play out. And they were starting to say, let the science decide, which is really weird because they didn't know exactly what the science was yet. But they said, all right, well, we're going to find out this way. And then that will make it incontestable what's to happen. But it will change all of our perspectives. Whether, you look at someone and you say, oh, well, this is my brother. Like, you won't know. You could be deceived because it has to do with, your gene flow. These are all things that they couldn't conceive of yet completely in the 20s and 30s.
Yeah, no, but from what I know, they never actually had any joint like war operations, or did they?
Well, so they did share like military strategies, technology. The Japanese had aviation experts that they participated in Germany, and Germans that went to Japan. So
okay, so they had tech transfer at least. Okay, because I never saw any like regiment or whatever, because they were up to Africa or something, but I never saw Japanese and German really in one place. But maybe I didn't look.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into that. I'm sure there's got to be something. There must have been some sort of a especially in terms of around North Australia and in the Polynesia. Like, there are definitely, but very quickly the United States started to dominate Japan, right? Because we took over those areas, we took back the Philippines and everything. So I think it made it seem like if the Japanese couldn't handle it on their own, that they had to work on what they were. And that's kind of the problem. If everyone's working in a circle around one thing, then there's no way for it to communicate. And so connection lines were probably also difficult. Plus, there was a lot of interception. So they were probably aware that most of the signals that were going to be sent would be heard. Just they'd later be, for years worked on to be decrypted. So they had to be really sure that their encryption was going to be, successful. I think there's a lot of reasons why World War II ended up the way it did, but the main one is intelligence, just the capacity to know what your enemy was saying to itself, right?
I'm not sure if I ever brought this up, then we can, close the topic. But have you been aware of this facility by the name of Bletchley Park? Or it's a location, actually. It's Bletchley. And this is something interesting because at least generally this wasn't really being told to the German population until recently by some individuals, which simply shows in a very convincing or a consistent way how, in this case, I guess the British mainly set up, of course, particular operation centers to ensure that after their success in war, they would make sure, how should I say, maybe in a way to break the spirit of the population, but it's just pretty nefarious and definitely is a far cry from, oh, we are so nice and assisting you with our Marshall Plan.
Yeah, no.
More towards also this idea of, keep Germany and Russia separate, all of those things, which may also just be one small part of the puzzle. But yeah, so that's the location.
Well, Bletchley Park is important because Turing, and you can watch the Turing movie, it's probably worth it, where he builds a machine and no one believes a machine can do what he thinks it's going to do, but it's able to decrypt the messages, and eventually they figure out what the Germans are sending, and they know for the rest of the war. But they have to sacrifice a lot of British, because if the Germans were to notice that British weren't dying, then it would be obvious, and so they'd have to change their codes. So they calculate what is the minimum amount of deaths that they have to sacrifice in every battle, and that becomes the rest of World War II. The rest of World War II is literally just Bletchley Park deciding how many people have to die in order for Germany to be defeated. And it's just math, it's just numbers, And one of the scenes is one of the mathematicians' brothers on one of the boats, and he can't warn him because they sacrifice their own brothers. It's just this crazy alchemical blood sacrifice. But that's really what happened. That's the only way
that's explained in that movie, actually. That comes up in that movie. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So it's very important. I think British are shown this a lot more now, but they weren't shown this until at least last 10, 20 years as well. So it's one of those things where well after people die, the right to remember is the right to be forgotten is the there's a British law from the Middle Ages that when you die, you have the right to be forgotten if you want to be.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could use that someday.
Well, you have a bunch of links you wanted to share.
Yeah, I have all kinds of things. Maybe pull this up for a second, and I'll be back in 2 minutes. You can maybe even watch this for 2 minutes.
I can't do the audio.
You can't do audio. Oh boy.
Can you share on your screen?
Yes.
Share, and then I'll full screen it for you.
1 second.
Please stand by.
Set this up.
And while you do that, I'll just
stand by. It's entertaining.
I can remember listening to this in a parallel dimension in Berlin in 2003, or 2002 even, in a McDonald's, right? Like in a space McDonald's. This was playing. I should really make more German pop. Never thought about it. See, some girl's eating her hamburger and drinking a milkshake in 2002 in Berlin. No, Stuttgart, probably even. just listening. Where's this guy from? Is this Berlin? Where's he sound like he's from?
Yeah. I mean, Germany for sure.
But
about the particular counties. But it's High German, so
yeah, like Hamburg or
be anywhere.
Right? It'd be like Hamburg.
Europas soll ans Licht. Durch die Straßen Wiens gleitet das Flüstern leise von geheimen Treffen im Schatten, wo die Wahrheit geleugnet wird. Von Regierungszellen bis zu den Tavernen, im Untergrund Geheimnisse bleiben bestehen.
That's pretty crazy lyrics. I'm not sure if you understand. Did you tell him to sing those lyrics, or?
What did he say? Did it say what I wanted him to say? I can give you my version. What did he say?
Yeah, he was talking about like some meetings where the truth is being denied or something. I was like, oh, okay, it's heavy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I maybe have managed now.
That's my goal. That's awesome.
Maybe I have managed.
You hear the lyrics, bro? That's the goal. Yeah,
the lyrics.
The present should be the thing.
So I'll just. Oh my God. I don't see anything. Okay.
I see it.
All right. So just as an intermission for 2 minutes, let's play this and I'll be right back and we can continue the show. All right. This is just something really interesting. I'm not sure how popular this guy is, by the name of John Thor, because I believe I had seen him somewhere. And yeah, it's just always nice, to get some summarized documentaries on Antarctica and whatever is going on or not going on there. So if it's all right for you, we can continue in 3 minutes and I'll just play this in the meantime.
Sweet.
Right?
Yeah, hopefully that's cool with John Thor.
Enter daily. Your demand is ridiculous. But you probably already knew that, right? And that's why you probably keep demanding it. It's actually pretty funny that I just got one of these take a picture comments an hour ago. I'm going to prove in this video that independent travel is not allowed under the Antarctic Treaty System. That fact alone should cause any thinking person to begin questioning our official models, because something big is being hidden from we, the plebeians, and we're not talking about penguins. For most flat earthers, based on the information that we can reasonably gather, Antarctica constitutes the outer rim of the known world. In other words, Antarctica is likely the shoreline to all of the world's oceans. Like a ring magnet, north constitutes the center of our flat Earth map, and south is every direction away from the northern center. And before I get a dozen comments claiming that such a magnet is impossible, here's a ring magnet shown here. Notice that south is in every direction away from the center north magnetic pole. This is where the 60th south parallel is on a Mercator map.
All right. So yeah. Anyhow, just sometimes nice to rewatch some of these summaries, and I think there is some good arguments. My knowledge of physics and all of that is not sufficient. However, this is with this whole debate. What I always like to come back to is this, the Gleason map basically, and this whole question. And I think you also brought it up nicely in your Xirtus history documentary about just considering what this projection would do. And yeah, anytime we have conversations on the shape of the Earth, I always go back to and be like, well, as long as we don't have a proper mapping and we cannot freely explore this area, we know we're on a plantation. So yeah, and I just think even if someone already knows about these things, I think it's always great to watch, especially if these summaries are well made, just because there's so many facets to it, and not even to take any sides, but just to really be aware of all the different arguments. And just like what he's shown now with the magnet, and they make some experiments with GPS and whatever else. And yeah, it's, I think, always worthwhile listening to independent researchers and see what results they come up with if we want to get a clearer picture of wherever we are.
Yeah, I wonder how wide being in Ushuaia, and like how wide does it feel in South Africa? Everybody, like, let us know. I'm very curious.
How wide?
Yeah, I mean wide, because this
right.
polar projection map is one of the projection maps that people use, right? And like this idea is interesting, but how does this make your continent feel? Does this feel true to you, like in this perspective? Probably I would trust people from the South more on their perspective of that. What's the other kind of cool map that's good? Types
on the Gleason map, of course. I mean, that's one of the most well-known. But if anyone in the chat, let's see. What are the best maps you guys know of?
Yeah, into that. This is a little Slavic, but still kind of Balkan. Oh my god, that's more like Gogo Bordello. I don't know about that one. It's 2024, and it's truly insane that we still do not have a live, unedited video or photo of the planet we live on from all those crafts we have launched. Yeah, you'd think that the Japanese satellites, which are the furthest theoretically, would give us the most data. That would be pretty sweet.
And wasn't there also a recent launch? It was pretty hilarious. I mean, there was the Indian one, and it's just amazing. And no matter what anybody's position is on this, I'm not sure how many NASA fanboys are subscribed to Xirtus. I hope many, in a way.
I hope we got plenty.
Yeah. Just that what you can always tell, and then for some reason I fell into this rabbit hole of now sometimes watching. I think this started during the crisis for me. I mean, already before I was watching different news channels that you could find that are accessible from different countries. And of course, India also has their news channels. And maybe you've heard her. She's, I guess, becoming pretty famous now or something. A woman by the name of Palki Sharma. And she had been doing World is One News. And now she's doing something called Vantage on First Post Network. Aside from the fact that I still find it curious how it's possible that a channel can have 4 million subscribers and then still only 3,000 people watching something live. But this, anyone interested, almost seems to be like this is to be made out to be like the face of India or something. Because what's quite interesting is that she's oftentimes very positively commenting on whatever the government's doing. And then, of course, you had all the speeches by Modi talking about how happy they are that they now made the space flight and so on. And if you know more about it, you can also really see here how they tie these ideas together of these great space explorations, which mainly consist of 70s CGI, with nationalism, and how, I mean, if you know the methods, it seems really like a lame way on how to like herd people together and make them rally around this idea, which unfortunately, ultimately, I would claim 99.99, probably a few more 9% of Indian population doesn't benefit from this at all. Yeah. Aside from being able to pat themselves on the back and say, oh, supposedly now we also have a CGI simulation of landing on the moon or whatever they did. All right, this was the most recent thing. They recently had, so this is interesting to anyone who wants to see like Indian view news, let's say. But unfortunately, of course, they also go along with most of the common tropes, even though they have a more neutral perspective often and try to show more sides. But it's obviously also biased and also, accepting most of the general tropes. So it's not really alternative media. The most recent thing in the whole space race was something that happened only last week, I believe, where there was a private launch to the moon. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, some corporation.
And it's pretty hilarious because supposedly it still looks like tinfoil, but supposedly it like fell over or something. And then luckily NASA came to the rescue because what a big coincidence. So, it's almost like God's providence that NASA had a backup system, which this other company could use. So I was already thinking like, what is the ploy here to make NASA look good again?
Well, I have a thought. I have a thought on this I wanted to bring up, but this is the only place it made sense. On a flag, you can have like a bunch of flags, and people get all upset when there's a bunch of flags. But as long as the United States flag is the highest flag, that's legal in the United States. Not a huge deal, but let's just like look at this it has above the United States flag the Columbia brand. And the Columbia brand's interesting because it's a swastika, right? That's the brand. So you've got
but what is Columbia actually? I should know, but what is it?
It's a sport. It's a clothing brand, Columbia.
Because I was about to say it's like an effing clothing company. What a joke is this? I mean, come
bro.
on.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty crazy.
They made this new spacesuit underwear or what?
I mean, it's just like of all companies you
but
could.
Yes, the logo is suspicious. I never even noticed. I mean,
1938. So I mean, he's like, I'm not changing it. I had it for a year already before the Polish and okay, all right. So basically, I find that interesting, and the fact that it's above the flag. Because if it was below the flag, you'd be like, all right, whatever, Nike. And if it was a Nike, I mean, for sure. But I don't know, Columbia. That felt like a little. That was a little much. Like on the moon. Is that just me? Swastikas on the moon? It feels like a thing.
Who's on the moon?
Swastikas. Like there's that movie.
Okay, now I see what you're saying. Oh my god! I mean, they made whole movies about this. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Oh my god.
That's all I'm saying, bro.
Oh my god. Oh my
Iron
god.
Sky. And what is Iron Sky all about? Like the iPod on the moon, eventually too. So like corporation has to come to the moon. I don't know. I got this vibe when I saw the Columbia logo. Because whenever I see the Columbia logo, I get a vibe. But that was above the flag on the private corporate rocket.
Since we're on that very simple, superficially symbolic route, what about the thing above that? Intuitive machines?
Its name is Odysseus, right? Like, that's cool. Like, it's literally Odysseus. Okay, what was the thing above it? Where did you see the intuitive?
Yeah, because I never heard about them before, but that's supposedly the new innovative, amazing private company that built this thing, or whatever they say.
Yeah, well, its logo is interesting. Look at that guy's face.
Yeah, because it almost looks like one of these stone faces, or
like the Chilean stone face, but also it looks like his head's being dissolved. It's like
fragmented. His memory is being fragmented for the Great Reset.
It's like that scene in Tron where Flynn, is it Flynn gets derez? Derez scene, 1981. Somebody. Come on, where's that scene, man? I want that scene real quick. It's worth it. Have you seen Tron?
I actually still haven't. I have to finally watch it.
Oh my god, it's so important. I can't find the scene. Basically, there's a scene where he's like, he gets derezed and he starts turning into pixels, and so it's a lot like that. He comes apart and he's turned into,
I mean, from that point of view, it could be like, the transition from seeing something with your own eyes to just seeing pixel art CGI.
Wow. It's founded in 2013. Private company held by Intuitive Machines. Listed on NASDAQ. Missions. Merger with SPAC. Project Morpheus. Nice. Really? Come on, guys. Really? Okay. All right.
Also called Project Masonry.
Yeah. Let's just okay. All right. Well, I mean, I'll play another AI song, but you want to pull up another thing?
Oh, definitely, but play a song, because then I'll have a minute to see what's the most fun.
Let's see which one I'm going to do. This one. I still like this one. This one's fun. This one I made for was watching Danny Polishchuk's Low Value Mail podcast. It's just a vibe. You gotta write the songs that people want to hear in English and about the things that they're experiencing. Yes, Melissa, the fact that it needs autotune, part of the plan. Oh, yeah. Why wasn't this a bigger hit in 1987? That's what I'm trying to find out. So Moscovium. All right.
And so there's a few other things I have, but some of it is kind of too dark and all too, major worldwide reset stuff. I'm not going to bring it up today.
Yeah,
So this is more the light stuff. So this is interesting. I bookmarked this because apparently, supposedly, this element was predicted. Maybe you can even should be able to easily look this up. Element 115, I believe. Yes. And this was originally mentioned by, and now I should get the name, who was the most famous individual talking about underground military bases? Phil Schneider, I believe. Could that be the name?
Maybe.
And it's just curious that back then this was supposedly revealed through basically his secret contacts or whatever he had. And back then already, these decades ago, he was the one making a big fuss about the potential existence or whatever of these underground military bases. And supposedly back then already said that he was working with a particular element. And then interestingly enough, 20 years later, they are discovering that element. And now, of course, or Bob Lazar, it was Bob Lazar. Everyone says it's Bob Lazar, all right?
I was worried you were going to say that. I was just like, please don't say Bob Lazar. That's okay. It was all right.
Okay.
What about Niobium?
Good question. We can go on to that in a second. I just want to point out that here again the big question remains: is this really a prediction or something, or is this again just a big psyop? And they know that 20 years later, 30 years later, we will discover this officially, and this can then prove whatever we planted back then or give credence to something. So I have no clue about it. I thought I'd bring it up because I recently had heard about this again.
1963, Donald Duck's Disney Studio publishes a comic. Where's the picture of it? Here it is, where Donald Duck gets hit in the head and he walks over to the science speakers and he says, if I mix chlorine with nitrogen and boil the atoms in osmotic fog, I should get speckled nitrogen, according to nitrogen 4. He's talking about chemical talk, but he knows nothing about chemicals. So this is actually earlier. This is evidence 1944 of research on methylene by Donald Duck. So anyway, they found out years later that is actually how you make methylene.
Oh boy. Okay, so they put basically some science bit that they knew about in the comic, and then they said they discovered it later.
When they discovered it 40 years later, they were like, huh, that was right. Donald Duck.
It's almost like The Simpsons predicting what's going to happen. Oh, yeah. Surprise.
Yeah, basically. So that's a good one. That's an example. The other one that's interesting is Victor Ninov, because he created ninovium. First of all, let's start with let's zoom this in so you can't read it ahead. No spoilers. Bulgarian physicist, former researcher, worked primarily in creating super heavy elements. He's known for the co-discoveries of elements 110, darmstatium, 111, Roentgenium, and 112, Copernicium, right? So those are pretty sweet. Good job. But then you can use spoilers right here. He alleged fabrication of the discovery of element 116 and 118. So right after 115 and 118, he said that he basically everyone was off at Burning Man for the summer, and he was the only one in the lab. So he's like, I did it. And then Berkeley, because it was Berkeley got credit for discovering 116 and 118, and he was going to name it ninovium, which didn't work out because they proved that that he didn't really do it. But it took like 5 or 6 years, and there's all these other companies in like Japan and Iceland and things that were really close. And they're like, huh, his way that's not the way we were working on it at all. So that stopped them from doing it their way for a few years until they got back on track. And then they just did it. And then everyone was doing it, and they were publishing repeatable methods that were real. And so it proved that he was a total fraud. But that, he wasn't a total fraud because he'd already done a 110, 111, and 112. Just that, he was trying to get credit for 116 and 18. I think that's kind of interesting considering 115 was the one right before it. My sound can't go through the computer, but
yeah, so this I just wanted to pull up because I mean it's one of these random videos I stumbled across and was like, oh, interesting. People actually consider similarities between Sanskrit and Lithuanian, which would be one of the examples which I would least consider. They claim lots of similarities. I can't say more about it because I have no clue about Sanskrit nor about Lithuanian, but just in this whole idea of having a common language maybe only a few hundred years ago, this can be another interesting field of research.
Right. I think that didn't they also do this one with German, and it was pretty impressive because you can say things like mein Namen and Mama Nama, like my name is.
Yes, actually you can. Yeah, it's crazy because at least for a German speaking individuals, that would be the last thing I would ever consider. And it's not something that's readily being taught or told to anybody. But yeah, oh, nice. Oh, but only 109 subscribers. Oh, of course. And we can't read the Sanskrit, unfortunately. Or I can't.
That's what you get. That's what you get. Daha instead of dare. Manaha. Manaha. Daha. Bamaha. I think Bamaha. So let's try, maybe there's someone else who's done that as a conversation. Really? They did the Lithuanian, but not the German. I find that interesting. Well, that's cool. Well, I'll definitely have to watch that.
That's the cover. Who knows?
Yeah, they don't want anyone to know the truth. Turkish. German versus Persian.
Oh, German and Yiddish, of course, is also interesting. It's on the top.
Yeah.
Because Yiddish is the one thing that even in Vienna, they kind of tell you that people spoke.
Yeah. And it's basically German. Yeah. It's a German.
Well, don't say that. But yeah, probably. Yeah.
Well, it is. It's basically a German. I mean, it is a German. It's mostly German, like, because they were speaking in Germany. So it's like less and less Hebrew because they've been living in diaspora. But still based with like Hebrew roots, I'm sure, or because if maybe it's like the way Jamaicans speak English or something like that. Is that worse? Did I make it worse? I'm sorry. I don't know.
I'll just leave it there for now.
I like the Ninovium thing though. I think that's an interesting story. Just the idea of like the elements, because people trying to figure out how they can make elements, and this is kind of the rule. Like you can predict these elements, but you don't get credit for them and get to name them unless you actually are able to achieve them with repeatable results. So I find that interesting. You could see that it would have to exist, so why not just take credit for it and wait to figure it out later? Of course, that destroyed his career, and so now it's this guy.
But that's a good one. The OG, that's a nice one.
Yeah, that's what we get now. We get the real OG 118 now. So that's.
And just imagine you could get your mugshot and have the radioactive symbol above you. OG.
That guy's stoked. Yeah. Oganesson. I think isn't he from Iceland or Finland? Let's see. Oganesson. He's from Russia. Moscow. Yeah, he's from Russia. Good job, dude. Yuri Oganesson. Yeah, he looks stoked. He's happy.
So I'm curious, you, Andreas, or anyone in the chat, if anybody ever watched the Project Camelot interviews, which were quite popular during a certain time. Carrie Cassidy, are you familiar with her?
Carrie Cassidy? No.
Yeah, Project Camelot. This was interesting also for historical purposes, because I would say she was one of the first who interviewed all kinds of interesting individuals. Everyone can then have their very own opinion, kindly, as to how far whoever went off the deep end in various areas, right? Or who is believable or who is not. And yeah, actually, I'm just bringing this up because there is this really, I think, very amazing comedian. I'm not sure if I ever brought her up, by the name of Intel Lady. I'm posting the link. And just so anyone who wants to be able to look at that, or you can even find her like that, that's great. Who wants to look at and have a lighthearted view on these kind of topics, you can definitely watch her, because in particular, her Carrie Cassidy interpretation is just completely amazing. So in the one hand, I want to, how should I say, value whatever work and research people did. And this is for Carrie Cassidy. Yes, it's really amazing, especially the way she talks and so on. And this is Simon Parks, who's also been quite popular recently. And she's just kind of, poking fun at the more maybe outrageous claims that individuals make, especially, and unfortunately in the last years, some of you may have noticed, there have been quite a few that got big very quickly with all kinds of, supposed research and intelligence, and unfortunately ultimately came up short or just set up some sort of one scam or another. And so she, I guess, made it her mission, I can only assume, after watching a lot of this content herself, and then probably discerning more what is maybe closer to truth or not. But anyways, she's making really great comedy videos. So if anyone knows any of that stuff, I can wholeheartedly recommend her channel, because I think, especially when doing this kind of research and dealing with all these kind of heavy topics, it's very important to be able to laugh at it all as well. You muted.
I was saying, yeah, I'm subscribed, and everyone, I hope you subscribe to Intel Lady. Nice, very good. Well, doom and gloom. You can't just be like, well, I got some doom and gloom, but come on, pull it out. Where's the links on? You're talking about.
Oh, doom and gloom. Okay.
You're gloom pilled. You're black pilled and gloom pilled. I wanted to see that.
Okay.
A gloom pilled Austrians are never safe. You have to really support your comedian friends and your gloom pilled Austrian friends.
I mean, this is the really dark stuff that you actually. I mean, we already discussed some of it previously, so let me see. Well, I'll just share it.
If it's too bad for you, if you're like, I don't know.
No, it's not. It's not really too bad. It's just things where, oh wow, the video is unavailable. Now that's convenient. Of course, already got banned.
That's what you get.
So basically, I'll just say it in this. But I can still pull up the researcher for you. That's a good one in any case. And this is for anybody who I guess could be. Oh, they deleted the whole channel already. Oh my God.
That ought to show them. How dare they? How dare they?
Wow. Okay, 1 second. I'm just looking up. Oh, here on Odyssey. Of course, Odyssey to the rescue. Let's see. Oh, great. Not banned yet. That's amazing. So this is one of the most interesting researchers in the, and I'll show another one right after this. In the German-speaking area, he's done a lot of research into symbolism, especially also with, in particular, German hip-hop culture. Maybe some people are aware, what symbolism, Babylonian, whatever, they love to use with, I don't know, Beyoncé and all of those. And he was one of the first guys in the German-speaking region who also looked at German rappers and could show, sometimes what strange background connections they have, what symbolism they use. He's doing very decent research. And also doing research.
He's been banned. That's a good sign. That's an accolade. If he's been banned, that means...
Yeah, but the thing is, he just got banned again, because I had just found his channel again with a few thousand subscribers on YouTube, and got banned again. And I think he's republishing now. He's also doing stuff, as you can see here through the descriptions, on trafficking and all these background connections, which maybe are not the most fun topic, but since there are not many independent researchers, I think really looking at this deeply, he's definitely someone to check out. Of course, for English speakers, ideally find a way for captions. I guess his stuff is not regularly being translated yet, but yeah. And then there's one more thing I'd like to share. Let's see how I can pull this up. Just in terms of one other researcher who is German-based, but to anyone interested or who understands German, highly recommended. Just a second, because those people are not so easy to find. All right. Wow. This is really amazing how certain people just get banned from YouTube.
Disappear.
So creative.
Odyssey is say what you want about Odyssey. It's pretty great.
Oh, yeah.
I really like Odyssey.
Oh, yeah. Just to give a link, you can open it up for a second if you want, just to see the guy and show maybe this. He also shows slides in this presentation. The most recent link I put in the private chat.
Here.
Yeah, exactly. And even just looking at the slides, it can already be interesting. So he's also trying to give a, historical view, showing different power groups. Of course, as every researcher, I guess he has his own theories. And in his case, it's a very much, I would say, pro whiteheads have everything under control model, which people can agree with or not. But anyhow, his analysis is pretty interesting. And he's one of the more famous, I guess, underground, some would associate somewhat with Q researcher type guys, but certainly, delivering quite, I would say, relevant and interesting information. And just as some other researchers trying to show more, as you can see here, 200-year plan, like how these things are planned out over a longer time. And he also explains, I think, very nicely how the script it seems they have is maybe only about 90 years and then it repeats again, with crises, virus, war, all of that stuff. So I think it's, definitely worthwhile to check it out.
Dude, what's X Club? I want to know about that X Club from 1820. That sounds cool.
You'll have to check it out, what this could be. I'm not sure. X Club? I was thinking of S Club. But
It says right there, X Club 1820.
Well, maybe just look it up. Let's see. I'm not sure myself. Different search engine mojo. 1820 Society, X Club and Royal Society Politics. An influential set of chaps. Exactly, that's where I am now too, yeah.
Not only included Hooker and Huxley, but their fellow members of the X Club. This is, our time had been the 1870s and early 1880s, so this is later, right? Or well, maybe this, because it's supposed to be 1820s when it started, so interesting.
But this also relates to the research that Doug Journalist did so I can still speak. The research Doug Journalist did on X stenography, where he has shown that even if you look up the supposed, maybe also forged, but still original document by Christopher Columbus when he's signing something, or he gets licensed to colonize America or something like this, and he's also signing with this kind of a strange X, and the whole idea of X comes along again and again and again. I'll see if I find it.
This XMY?
Yeah, I think, at least that one, yeah. So this X, seems to be a repeating symbol for whatever reason.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it. You gotta do the X, man. That's interesting. I didn't know that Christopher Columbus used an X. That's pretty interesting. I wonder why.
Yeah, Doug Journalist talks about this a lot, and where he also, makes this distinction between X share and X protect, where he says, there's the people that just want to guard the knowledge and suppress everyone, and there's the people who attempt to share it.
So Sir Francis Drake also used an X? So X marks the spot has to do with what? Yeah, very much.
Has to do with everything, apparently.
Good job, Xirtus. Okay, that's cool.
X factor. It's the X factor.
It's that X factor. You need it. Yeah, okay. I noticed that Xbox is probably going to shift away from X. Like Microsoft is going to probably start calling it Microsoft Gaming because they don't want to be associated with Twitter. I don't know. I mean, that's my hypothesis. I'm watching it happen slowly, but I think
they're going to rename the console to what?
Microsoft. It's first off, they won't need consoles next year. Or the year
after. It's all going to be delivered by the cloud straight to your smartphone. All right.
Microsoft's got gaming on the Oculus. It's got gaming on your Apple headset, and so they're gonna just be working towards instantaneousness. Like PlayStation VR 2 is going to play on your PC now. You don't even need to plug your headset into your PlayStation because your PlayStation's 4 years old, so you can plug it in and play Steam games. There's hundreds of new games. So pretty soon it's going to be all that content. I think Sony's going to continue, Nintendo's going to continue having consoles. PlayStation's going to release a handheld. Xbox is releasing a lower powered Xbox this year, and then 2026 I think they're going to release the new Xbox. 2028 maybe they're going to release the new PlayStation. But the Xbox thing, it's Microsoft fired the Xbox team, and then they took the team from the Surface, the Microsoft Surface, and put them in charge.
Wow, I was like that was the most dump truck project ever, right?
Yeah,
interesting. It got somewhere, maybe. Yeah.
Well, people really liked the Surface, I think, in some ways. I mean, if you think about it, it's the most commanding use of tablet tech arguably. I mean, but whatever. It's slightly better than what Apple's doing with the iPad. The iPad's like dead. You know, they don't know what to do with the iPad at this point. Stefan, though, with the super chat, have y'all heard of the Hooked X? Is this it? What's the Hooked X for, bro? Is it because of the rune? That rune symbol, bro?
I don't think I ever consciously saw this.
The Hooked X, A Secret History of North America. Yeah, there must be something here. Stefan, we're gonna have to do a whole thing on this. Stefan, you'll have to talk to us about the Hooked X. Get your slides ready. What was that? That looks cool. The wilderness of the Red Sea. There must be something to this Hooked X. I don't know anything about it. Sorry, not yet. We're gonna have to do a whole thing. Is it about? Oh, is it having to do with the Mediterranean Sea and leaving Egypt, like before the Nile flowed through or something like that into, you know, like the previous. I don't know. I don't know about that. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, I don't know. Microsoft's about to do, this is like lame, but I've been thinking about it. Microsoft's about to have like Windows Plus, and it'll probably be awesome because AI will run everything because Microsoft owns like such huge amounts of ChatGPT and everything. So it's going to be like crazy. Like instead of having, you know, because people already are stealing their operating system, now you have a subscription plan. It'll include a Microsoft Gaming Pass. You'll be able to access it on your Apple device or on your Meta Quest Pro.
Will it come with the jack included?
Yeah, that's where we're at, bro. That's where I think that's next year. Pretty quickly. We're almost to that point. You saw with the AI that Mixtral is like an open source model that Microsoft like is purchasing basically. So a lot of the open source stuff is about to get closed down, and then we haven't seen it yet. But I've been predicting
down because it's been open source and they buying it or what?
Yeah, like so OpenAI used to be open source.
Oh,
right?
so it's like the Apple Unix Darwin thing all over again or what?
Yeah, but also I think it's like we haven't seen the lawsuits yet or the legal problems yet, and obviously like you can look at what happened to Facebook. Not much is going to happen probably, and I think that's what OpenAI is banking on. Like they'll just pay a fee and they'll be able to move on with stealing lots of data to make their AIs, but it might not work out that way. And I'm starting to think like OpenAI might hit a pretty big problem. Like the United States could just ban. It sounds crazy, but the United States could literally just ban OpenAI in the United States, and you know then OpenAI would have to pick another country to do its business in, but that could happen. There could be like something happen where OpenAI products leave the market for a while. And I don't know if that would really happen, but I'm starting to think it's possible that we might see like one of those, you know, with and without, with AI, without AI for a bit worlds. And people be like, oh, I can't live without my drug. I need AI back. I think that could happen.
Well, maybe if it's advanced enough by then. I mean, the one thing that by now everyone has seen, of course, already is this composite AI videos, right?
Yeah.
And another great reason why to watch this Indian show, because then you also kind of get like, you know, what is their presentation of it, and it's kind of funny. I mean, they do the same thing, or put a different way. You can see that they also bring the exact same news as everyone else, where on all the major news shows they had like, oh, can you believe this, John? Look, it looks so real or something, and they're going completely crazy over this. But the real question would be, or what is your assessment? How much further advanced is the technology really, and how much more capacity to alter and forge or artificially create motion picture, for example, already has been there before they are now releasing that to the public. Yeah,
I mean, look at this is our buddy Aiden. He's been making these are all AI generated movies. This is Pearl Davis with Matt Fuentes in a like cafe. I mean, they're even funnier with audio, but yeah. Actually, you know what? Can you play this one with audio on your side? Because I can't play audio. Would you play this? I'll send you the link.
Yes, just give me a second.
Yeah, I actually like this guy. We did a show with him yesterday, the day before, but Aiden from Alex Stein's show. But he also does a lot of AI stuff. And so amount of like I've been saying that we're going to be in a place where this is all live time, like real time, like pretty close to now. We're going to be in a point where you'll be able to just type in prompts and put on your Oculus headset or whatever, and you'll just be like watching generated live feeds of movies based around the characters you want thrown into like especially because they can train it on circumstances and be like, okay, well, a lot of movies really just happen in these kinds of framings, you know, in these locations. You change the framing a little bit, but basically almost always have these particular cinematographies.
Oh, you mean so in terms of how it is simple that having a certain amount of stock footage, you can easily create all kinds of movies, you mean?
Yeah,
or because it's sort of such recurring themes?
Both.
Right.
You know, first off, you've got like rooms, so you've got all these different kinds of sets, but then you've got, you know, like 3D modeling software, so you can imagine how you'd be in the set, and how you'd be, there's only so many ways you like to frame a movie. So you could even pick a style, you know. Yeah, play it.
All right.
NYC, Chirac, doesn't matter. All the cities are disgusting. That's everywhere. Drugs, disease, dumb Zoomers everywhere, low IQ femoids. I take my wife out. I wanted to go to McDonald's, but instead I took my wife to the local POA man cave. Skanks and single moms are always outside. Italian woman with daddy issues. She's late as always. It's open mic night for Right Boy Rap. Hey, honey, how was your podcast today?
Oh, it was so great. I was talking to Drake about family values. Talked to black women about Kegel squats.
Oh, shut up. Never mind. Ew, by the way, I switched your birth control to a placebo.
You what? You what? My podcaster Tate's bottom bitch will beat me up.
Iced, baby.
So we're going to the movies tonight?
Hope the ads are good.
You will all bow before me, cis men.
Get all your thoughts to date incels. You're just a dirty thought.
Mister, please stop having a parasocial relationship with me. Mister, my boss will get mad if I do catnip with you.
She got iced, baby.
Babe, wait! I'm going to break up with you. You have 2 seconds.
What's the big deal? I thought you liked cats.
It took me to a Catboy peep show. A Swedish Catboy film. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, if you were like a millennial or maybe the Zoomers, I guess, but like I think that is the future. You know what I mean? Like that is literally where we're going. It's just going to be that, although probably with better audio because you'll just type that stuff and then it'll enact in like a set of voices and everything. But you know, this is what kids are going to be doing. I think more than watching reruns, it's just generating content like this.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this can maybe even be interesting because I think, you know, all of these tools, the people who have too much money and control and power fantasies, they most likely already had access to all of those tools in some way, shape, or form.
So look, someone's already finding it relatable. Okay.
I didn't catch that.
Oh, they were like, I had a GF do that to me once. Placebo. Ha ha ha. It's like, okay, there you go. See, like if you can relate, then you'll laugh. There you go.
Yeah, right. So I think generally this can be very interesting and creative because just with all the AI tools, my honest assessment is just that for many smaller projects that would have had great vision but just didn't have the manpower, they can now do a lot of things that they just couldn't do before on a much tighter budget. And I would say oftentimes also with projects that really, or companies have the goal to assist individuals, they oftentimes had the issue not enough funding and so on. So for me, at least for now, AI really just seems like, for lack of a better term, to be leveling the playing field, as long as, you know, it still remains somewhat open or however. I'm sure this will be very interesting how different models and so on will be bought up and copyrighted and sold again in open source and pirated. But I'm sure we're going to get to watch all of that first row.
Right. So that, I mean, I kind of thought about this yesterday, but I'm curious what you think about it because, again, you know, you've got OpenAI stealing all this data and it's training it on Disney. Clearly, like we've got people making Pixar, Disney, Dolly pictures, right? But then you've got Google AI, which is training on all of the books it has access to, but it's Google. Google has a lot of money too, so it's paid for Reddit's $60 million a year to license Reddit's data, right?
Oh,
so
wow.
so there will be like a licensed model thing, and then there's going to be stolen models, and they're probably going to be like really super ethical models that people like pick the data they want to train on and everything. But I just wonder, what do you think it's going to be like? Because those kinds of model, I mean, we could make a model that's trained on all the data before 1930, you know, that's all open, free, public domain, and that would be amazing. Like, think about when you read these educational tests for like a junior high school entrance exam, and you're like, I couldn't get out of 6th grade in 1911. You know what I mean?
Pretty much.
Like this, so clearly, like that would have been pretty useful. And it might be that you end up with a more intelligent AI because of that. If you
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely would be cool if at least we don't only have, you know, 3 Google sanctioned, as they are now, whatever, social justice warrior AIs or however they are trained, unless you jailbreak them, right? So I think overall, just having different models and having them trained on different things, even as Blake Lemoine mentioned with this whole expert thing, it seems now the Google Gemini AI got released, and like he said, supposedly uses 50 expert systems or something. So even just having one or several trained and be like, all right, let's see, let's pretend cut off at 1930 or whatever could be decided, and then just see what different answers it would give for same questions, I think could be very interesting, and be like,
Wow.
okay, from the point of view 1930s, even only with official science and whatever documents we have left, because there's nothing else we can work with, obviously, this would be an answer given in 1930.
Yeah.
Which, if it is accurate, you know, at least I don't know all of those names of those guys, but I believe it was Dave Weiss who even had this interview once with this old lady, 19-year-old, and at least she said that yes, in school back in the 1920s, 30s, they learned that the Earth was flat, whatever this means. Yeah, but this could be quite interesting then when different information is presented, different views. Yeah. So much for the multipolar world. So let's see, where's the Russia AI actually? You know, like what's going on?
Pretty well, actually.
I mean, does no one have any competing models, like on a big state actor level or something? I mean, companies are the new states, but
yeah,
Korean AI. I mean, who's there? Japanese?
The Japanese have one. The Russians is called GigaChat, which I like because it sounds like Giga Chad. So I think that they did that on purpose. I'm pretty sure. And it's pretty good as far as I can tell. It's pretty great, and you can actually access it from some you know, it'll have answers, hold questions, write program code. It's better, but yeah, you want to approach it in Russian because it doesn't like to have to translate into English. It feels like it's being disrespected.
I bet.
Yeah, but it's cool. I think that one's a good one. The other thing is, we talked about this, but Earth may have actually once been flat kind of a long time ago, according to New Atlas and all of these scientific journals. There was another one that was Jupiter may have been flat at one point that came out like a week or two ago from the Independent. All of this stuff talking about like soft disclosure of flatness of space, flat space, right? Which is like, flat Earth is one thing, but flat space, bro.
Exactly, but it's 2D actually. So
you gotta go the whole way. You know what I mean? Like, gotta get there. So I don't know. What do you think about this? That they're like all of a sudden like independent and all stuff. And they're like, well, it used to be. What are they saying by that? They're saying, well, it used to be, because that's how they always disclose stuff. It's like millions of years ago. Sure.
Yes. Millions of years ago, humans lived peacefully in the Garden of Eden. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly, I have no clue. I really don't know what's going on there, because I think the official side is so incredibly ridiculous, as I mentioned with the recent space explorations and the thing falling over and stuff like this. People must be living in parallel realities by now. The ones that are not really considering it, or they just like science fiction and want to believe that they can go to Mars in a chemical fuel rocket. And most everyone else who took a closer look, or maybe knows a bit about video editing or something, and notices that the rockets fly like this. So I really, to me, anything that's like NASA based or something like that, obviously it's some kind of an operation, but for what? I really wouldn't I wouldn't dare to say at this point. I don't know. I mean, is there any disclosure in the regards to Hollow Earth going on at all? Because what officially you only have this Grush type and these other guys that talk about whatever space aliens, but most likely that's just going to be another diversion.
12 days ago, an ancient planet may be trapped near the center of the Earth. Of course, we've talked about this idea of, the crashing of planet Theia into proto-Earth, which made the moon, according to Scholastic Book Fair,
Right. Is that the Sitchin thing?
This is what they teach you in 3rd grade science class.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is
really.
So, yeah.
I don't even know if I ever learned about the supposed creation of the moon officially. That's an interesting one. That they even say they know how it happened. That's already curious in itself, right?
Well, they say her name was Theia, and that Theia come on. Moon. This is just as suggestive somehow. I don't know. I get some sexual gestalt vibes from this anyway. But you've got Proto-Earth being hit by Theta, and then Theta goes into Proto-Earth, and then some of Theta remains in Proto-Earth, and then Theta ejects out inside out, which is then clumped together, which becomes the moon, right? And so the moon is hollow. We know this because it's basically an inside out. The crest is the core. It's the inverse of our core, essentially. That's what the official story is anyway.
A cool story, bro.
Yeah, well, but they've in the story that when they hit the moon, it rang like a bell. Those kinds of things. And there's basically official science is that the moon,
or they hit the dome and that rang like a bell.
Theia, the planet that crashed into the moon. All right. So then the idea is that you've got part of it at the core, but then part of it ejects outwards and it comes out like this, and then it bends backwards and it becomes an inside out moon. But then the Earth.
I was about to say, because you said sexual connotations, I was like, oh, just like Greek mythology. Well, they are literally named after the Greek mythology. So
yeah. And then so from there, then Theia and Earth became one planet. Essentially, part of it that didn't get ejected to become the moon. And that's an interesting idea, especially because the moon is so large, and from our understanding of what we believe to be, other moons of other luminaries, it's like you should be much, much larger to have luminaries. And usually it's like Jupiter or something has like 26 of them or something like that. It's very rare that you have one that's this large, this close, and the way it follows is not like the way the others follow. So at very least, it's useful information that our moon is not like the others, right? Like we should really be using completely different logics for what's going on here, because it just nothing emulates that.
I mean, again, the one thing I think that always comes up for me ever since I tried to imagine this, when they said, oh, what is the proper formula again? Mass, I'm gonna say it the wrong way now. What is force? The relation between mass and attraction, right? So big mass is supposed to create big attraction. That's the basic formula they teach you in school, right? At least I think that's what they taught me. And then even you just start thinking logically about it. And if that is the only force, and quite a few researchers have shown this nicely, and this can be shown in simulations, at the very least, as soon as you have 3 objects, good luck finding a stable configuration. It's virtually impossible. And here we're supposed to have 7, 8, whatever plus objects with smaller orbiters. At the very least, I would contend, even if we would say that model is correct, that only with this mass attraction thing, this is not going to cut it, obviously, right? If there is really no other force existing, so at least it would have to be electromagnetic. But of course, the real issue is, I personally don't necessarily believe in redshift and whatever calculations they supposedly give you, because again, it's all their measurements and their data. So the real thing is, maybe as they are soft disclosing now, who knows what shape these things really are or what they are really supposed to represent. I'm not going to claim that I know. So yeah, and that model, of course, which also is more and more outdated. So maybe that's why they're switching. Not sure why this means they're going flat, but some people also claim this is because people become so dumb now that they can only think in 2D anymore or whatever. I'm not one of those, but yeah.
I like the idea that symmetry, density, and entropy matter, right? Like, so the area that isn't filled by nothingness is filled by something else, but that they kind of make up a pattern. And it does seem like things are in flux. Like, we have a very plastic reality that breaks down and changes shape, and energy does pull into itself and then force things to combine and change. So we do have sort of like an alchemical process that we're experiencing of life. I think the thing that is confusing there is structure, right? Because if you have structure, like you could have a chain link fence and there could be a tornado, and you've got, you know, straws going through concrete walls because they're shooting like darts, but the chain link fence can make it still. So there's all that's another thing I think in terms of structure we should consider is like nanostructure. Hold on. How is it possible that when you burn something, it ends up staying solid because it's carbon, right? And so it's made a structural net, and it starts to bond with itself in order to build a larger net, and so that produces more density, which is why you can use carbon for supercapacitors, because it can hold charge, right? And so holding that charge in a labyrinth of net, I mean, that seems like it should be counterintuitive, because you'd think that then it would pull everything apart or it would pull everything together, but because of the structure, it allows energy to lattice. And I think that's the difference, really. You know, we have that and memory, the idea of memory, because the biology is trying to remember what it was and what happened, and it's producing a fractal blueprint for acid to explode in a pattern and sequence that keeps a record of what explosions have already happened while then predicting to make new explosions. I mean, that system of memory, I don't know, that it's interesting. It's able to use density for, I mean, that's essentially atomic chemical explosions, right? So it's detonating on purpose in order to not let too much energy build up, and then causing itself to repeat. So it's replacing what's lost.
Unfortunately, I don't know enough about DNA expression and the accuracy of those models. But yes, from what I understand, it seems to be quite sophisticated. Let's say.
Well, I mean, if you have chemical reactions that cause explosions, and you're able to somehow have a sensor that picks that up, even if it's a biological sensor. So if a certain amount of thymine explodes, then it causes the next thing to react to that, and it stores a record of that thymine explosion. So that, I mean, it seems really complicated, but it's not that complicated. If you were to blow up a bomb in a room and that was a clean room, it would leave sediment on the walls of the explosion. So you just do that over and over again, and you're able to save a record of what.
Then you have a map on the wall if you can properly calculate it backwards, or
yeah, but that's essentially that's basically what we think DNA is. I mean, how we understand DNA to work. I mean, it's got more to it than that, but that's one of the mechanisms it uses to store data. And that's pretty geological. It's not. I mean, it's interesting that that is like a fundamental of a biological process, but it's still just geology, and it's explosions of rocks, right?
So we could also just be walking crystals.
Well, we basically are walking crystals, yeah.
Walking water, big walking water crystal, yes.
We need like a crystal radio set. Like, I really want to start playing around with crystal radio sets. I feel like these are super like awesome. I don't know why more people aren't doing this, just taking copper wire and crystals and building something that they can pick up on signals with.
Yeah, just as you bring this up, I'm pretty sure in some way, shape, or form we'll bring him on the show. A new friend of mine who's doing, let's say, frequency-based devices, where simply frequencies are being emitted. And I even have one dear friend, even present in the chat, who tried it out himself. And there are quite astounding results. I think the most common, the one you can pull up, is Dr. Royal Raymond Rife. Had you ever heard of him? And maybe we had brought it up before because I was talking about the Tesla-Lakhovsky machines. And this guy, there are also, it would be again interesting. Oh, this is a dumb raider. This is maybe we can show for the exit.
Oh, okay.
this guy, there is apparently, who knows if they are forged too, old newspaper reports already in, I believe, 1930s or whenever this guy lived, where he's basically claiming, yes, by applying certain frequencies, you can assist the body in self-regulation because certain organisms, they react to certain frequencies. It's a basic concept, and to me something also that was always kind of logical whenever I learned about the idea that everything also kind of is a wave and it should be able to cancel itself out or each other out depending on the exact settings. So yeah, as I mentioned, I brought this up once before, but just because it came up again, this is definitely something I would say very much worth looking into, because if it is true, as most of the religious and spiritual individuals may say, everything is frequency and vibration, then it makes sense to also look at that level. Of course, look at any pollution that may be there for all kinds of reasons, and also look at potential tools that may actually give off frequencies that maybe are beneficial for our well-being. Yeah, I'm not sure. Have you heard about this guy at all? Do you know about him?
Yeah, of course. We actually, if you want, we should get Royal Rife's, great nephew, whatever.
All right. I'm sorry. I know, because actually I talked about him and I was like, oh, this would be an interesting conversation, because of course they both are more technically inclined or in that topic. And I think it would be really interesting to have a show with the both of them, just to have a knowledge exchange. And to the degree that they can just explain, how is my device working? How is this device working? What is the specialty about it? I think that would really be awesome. So
yeah, we'll set that up. That sounds like a good
awesome.
thing.
Yeah, I got nothing else much then, except if you want, we can play the Dumb Raider just for comic relief, and then we'll sign out.
Okay.
All right. Enjoy, everyone. I hope you find it at least somewhat funny.
In these times of uncertainty, the world cries out for a hero. A hero who knows the deep underground better than the reptilians. Introducing Dumb Raider. Tough talking.
You're a paedophile, you're a paedophile, and you're a paedophile.
The Queen of the North West.
Hey, that's a decent cup of tea, that.
With a 300-strong army of Dumb Raiders.
Okay, team, listen up. 150 of you Dumb Raiders are going to go into the dumbs, get the children out, bring them onto the med beds, and the other 150, you're going to come with me. We're going to clear the dumbs, we're going to get those f***ing paedophiles out, and we're going to give them two choices. Death by bullets or death by hanging.
When things go wrong.
Well, that was an absolute f***ing shit show. I think somebody's given us the wrong address.
She never gives up.
This is exactly what I thought TV would be like.
Gather around, please. I know there's a lot of you, there's a lot to say, but before I give you any instructions, we have
the first time I watched it, I wasn't sure if it's real or not, actually. Okay? I was completely tripped out of what they were doing.
I know you think it's about me, I know it probably is in a way, but it's about God, really. So we're going to do a prayer, okay? Everybody gather around, put your hands together, and dear baby Jesus, thank you so much for coming to protect us here today. I ask that you help us clear out these dumbs and take those dirty pedos into your throne room and really, really give them what for. Deal with them accordingly and help us to become the heroes that we already know that we are. Thank you so much
Everybody's
for the
woman.
beautiful birds that sing in the fluffy clouds in the sky and all that sort of thing. Anyway, please protect us. Amen.
We all know her.
Caring.
Man down, man down. Get him on a med bed. You're on a med bed now. Everything's going to be okay. Just allow that technology to work its way through. Everything's okay.
With a direct line to the president.
Oh, hiya, Big Tongue. It's me. Have you signed any executive orders lately? You know you can executive order me up to the bedroom. anytime you like. You can raid my dorms till the fucking cows come home. Hello? Hello?
It's hard being a British.
Signal again. Fucking 5G.
And a thirst for action.
It's gonna blow! Run!
She still finds time to play polo with her friends. There is no end to her sophistication.
Right, which one of you 300 strong dumb raiding heads took a shit in my toilet?
Dumb Raider, deep underground military badass. Coming too soon to a discount store near you.
That should be real. We need that. I think that's exactly the idiocracy I expected. I wonder why the world doesn't make more television. Is the writer's strike? Because like that could be a show. You know what I mean?
I mean, the cool thing is you have all these really creative and completely independent individuals coming up. And again, this is where I see the boon of technology and AI and all of that, because you still always, I believe, I mean, I can see it and you can see it. You need a creative hand in all of that. Yeah, I can create 100 things and then maybe give you a good short list. If you tune it properly, that's also your job. All the data was humans, and then you have to curate it to really get something decent. But for independent creators and companies and projects, I think it can be great and can help maybe more ideas get more reach that have been underrepresented just because they didn't have access to high power tools like we do now. So yeah, everyone use AI responsibly, I guess, and have fun.
Dude, yeah, I mean, we're pretty much at that point where you can use AI for everything, but I don't know if it's a narcissistic thing, but I don't feel like I could be replaced. I don't feel replaceable still. Even with my like voice and my AI stuff, like I still have to write my own things. Like I don't think AI is really, it's good for
the AI cannot come up with like what is the best program or idea for today. And even if it had all the algorithms, where is novelty? You know, there's so many reasons. I honestly don't feel any threat from AI as an idea unto itself the way it is now, but I see it as a tool like everything else, and it always depends who has power over it, who can use it, but I don't see it making people obsolete ultimately. And ideally it should actually really just free up all, potentially at least those menial jobs or other things that people really don't want to do or really are dangerous. I mean, that's what we would have robots and AIs, pattern recognition systems for. Yeah, let's see if people get the message, or I don't know what exactly needs to happen that this all will turn out well. But I guess the show continues, so much is certain.
David Elvian, stop making fun of British people. Anyway, make sure you guys go to Act Like You Know 26, where you can watch amazing videos. Raphael's got a pretty great selection right here. He's got, if you speak German, my video is translated into German, but he also has a whole like catalog of David Ewing Jr. conversations, which are really incredible about the,
you can show the shorts just because a lot of editing energy went into those. The recent ones are even with subtitles now. So yeah, everyone kindly enjoy. And if you find anything relevant, of course, if you know anyone open-minded enough to even consider those ideas, you can show them some of those maybe, and maybe
next time put the subtitles up in the middle here because they get hidden below the
I noticed. That's fine now. Yes, it's really, it's such a joke how every platform almost needs a particular format and editing just because they all have their own,
those monsters.
But yeah, that's what it is.
Super bass. Yeah, guys, make sure you go to Act Like You Know 26 and subscribe, and also check out Comency.at, which is Raf's website. There it is right there. Pretty sweet. Look at that. Boom. Pretty sweet. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andreas. And everyone, subscribe to Xirtus.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and we'll see you later at Woo tonight. And Raf, you're invited if you're awake. And we'll see how it goes.
Enjoy, everyone. Thank you.
Peace.
This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello, Welcome to the Xirtus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Она образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, your skin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии наномер, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Thank you for watching Xirtus. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Xirtus.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.